Hi folks, welcome back to the Cobb TV studio where we've been doing some work in here during the COVID times. And we are bringing in today for the first time into our studio, a newly renovated studio, our county manager, Dr. Jackie McMorris, who took the reins, and we're being socially distant, by the way.
Yes, we are.
She took the reins in April, and it's just a crying shame that you've had nothing to do since that time. No, you came in right at the start of a pandemic, and it's been just crazy ever since. Just kind of describe becoming county manager at that time and what you've had to deal with.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I have to say kudos to the studio. It looks great. Thank you. Thank you and your team for helping us to get through this pandemic in terms of being able to continue to communicate with our residents about what's going on with COVID and where we can get testing and what businesses are doing drive-throughs and curbside and all of that. But you are right. No other county manager had come into the position with a pandemic to deal with. But because of the support and great work of our ADs and department heads, we were able to get through it. But it was not easy. We had to figure it out. We had to navigate through LOS, which is our limited operations services, while trying to continue to provide the level of service that our residents expected, even though they were understanding. We never shut down. And that's one thing I want people to understand, Ross, is that even in the middle of a pandemic, we continued to keep community development going. We modified some of our transit services, but for the most part, those folk who were able to teleworked, but a lot of us continue to come in and to keep the county going.
And that's created some problems in itself, and we're still dealing with it. Obviously, the situation keeps changing on a weekly basis, and we've had some of our county employees that have tested positive, and it's really been a challenge to keep the services that the residents want and need and deserve for their taxpayer money, but at the same time trying to protect those that work in the county government.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we were all trying to do initially was to find the PPE that we needed to make sure that we could make sure our employees were safe, those who were actually coming in. So we have a wonderful EMA director in Cassie Maslam and our public safety director, Randy Kreider, who really took the reins early on in getting us all organized and in the same place and space in terms of what our needs were, including the mask and the sanitizer, when it was very difficult to get those things. So that was the primary reason we went into LOS, is that we're not going to take any chances with our employees until we know that we could bring them back safely. So early June, we were able to do that. And for the most part, we've worked every single day to make sure that we are doing the things that our public health guidance and our Cobb Douglas public health officials are saying we should be doing. We're continuing to encourage our employees to be cognizant of what those guidelines are as we have opened back up, and as we now see cases are rising again within the region. We are still emphasizing continue to do what we know has been shared with us to somewhat reduce the cases, if we can possibly do that, by socially distancing, washing your hands, the hand sanitizer, trying to limit the exposure to large groups, even when you're not at work. So as far as what we've done in the county, immediately, besides the PPE in terms of masks and things, we were able to put up shields thanks to property management. So we purchased plexiglass in some places, glass in other places, to make sure the courts are properly sanitized and not forward-facing without any protection. The tax commissioner's office, tax assessor's office, we've done as much as we possibly can, and I said before, still trying to do everything we can to make sure that our family, the Cobb County family, is safe, but also those who visit our facilities are as safe as possible as well.
Right, and you and I are both wearing the green armband.
Yes.
That indicates we've been checked out today, so all the employees get checked when they come in, and you just touched on it, though. As much as we've been doing things to protect the Cobb County family, a lot of that work's been to protect the public who has to have contact with the Cobb County family, and I think mostly about the court system, where we have people coming in and out constantly, and we things like even using like those infrared thermometers
Yes.
to gauge people's temperatures. So we've been kind of breaking ground as we go through this.
Right. Again, there's no playbook for this at all. So we were trying to figure out what's the best way to provide those departments with the equipment that best fits their needs. So during our internal COVID-19 task force calls, we've learned a lot by listening to what their needs are, listening to their operations, and then trying to find the equipment that best fits them. We don't want our citizens who come to our facilities to have to wait a long time or to be out in the element as we screen them. But at the same time, we know how important screening really is. So for those facilities that require people to come in large numbers or in volume, we have tried to make sure that we have the infrared sensors for them. And for employees, we are doing the handheld thermometers every day and giving them these bands. And I know that's been tedious, inconvenient, questionable, but at the same time, we want to make sure that people have that sense of comfort that at least when you entered our facility, your temperature was below 100.4 degrees, and you have been screened by being asked those questions that our public health directors are saying that we should ask when we screen people. So we're doing the best we can. How long it's going to take before we get out of this, it doesn't seem like any time soon.
Yeah, and in the middle of all this, trying to keep county services going, then we get $132 million from the federal government as part of the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the CARES Act, that we now have to figure out how to best utilize that money to continue to do what we need to do to provide services. How challenging has that been? Because, like I said, it literally showed up in our bank account on a Friday, and we've been trying to figure out how to use that ever since.
Again, another unprecedented incident whereby we are trying to figure out how do we do that. And so one of the first things we did was looked at what are the needs in the county. What were best practices? So in communicating with our Board of Commissioners and our directors, we just said, all right, let's see where the greatest need will be. And we quickly identified 5 or 6 areas where we thought we could make the most impact within our county. And those areas included, one, our small businesses, in which the board set aside $50 million for that and working with Select Cobb. Food insecurity, we did about $1 million for that. $1.5 million for housing assistance or rental assistance. We have also set aside some things for our own countywide needs with PPE using the disaster relief category. We also set aside $1 million for retraining and job retraining and to help veterans who may have been workplace displaced. So in addition to that, we've tried to help out Cobb Douglas Public Health. There were other areas that the board may consider, including our school system. In addition to that, the governor has asked the counties that received the initial $132 million for Cobb specifically to allocate a percentage of that to our city. So we're in the process of bringing that forward as well. So it has been a challenge in terms of setting up the protocols, the guidance, the guardrails to protect and make sure that we are following Treasury's guidance.
Right, and you've already touched on this, but I just want to reiterate that we have that $132 million from the federal government to respond to the COVID crisis, but it's not $132 million that stays within the county buildings. I mean, a lot of this, in fact, the first large amounts of it, we sent out into the community.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. All of it is reimbursable. That is one of the criteria that is set by Treasury, and that is it has to be reimbursed expenditures. So we had to do a lot of educating and explaining and asking questions, and Holland and Knight was very helpful with us in providing some answers to questions that we had because we weren't certain that how we would be accountable for this money. If it goes out, how do we, make sure that it is being expended in the manner in which and in the spirit of the Treasury and the government that gave it to us. So we had to develop all of that, and that has taken some time. And for that, we think we have a process in place that we can make sure that that money is being used to benefit the citizens of Cobb in the most, I guess, the most effective way. And so we felt like if we could help those businesses stay afloat, then perhaps there would be less of a need for food, less of a need for housing assistance. But the board took that necessary step to, and still doing those things to make sure that that money gets out there as quickly as possible.
One of the interesting things I found as we navigate through this is that, according to the CARES Act, this is money that has to be spent by the end of the year.
Yes.
And that doesn't sound like a huge challenge
Right.
until you get into the logistics of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
Like you said, you have to educate people.
Right.
That's one of the.
And it's not just allocated
Yeah.
or
It's gotta be
obligated
spent.
by the end of the year. Yes, it is money out the door. And so to set up the MOUs or the IGAs with our cities and getting all those documents signed and approved by the board, it does take time to do that. So.
And the next thing I wanted to talk about is, as you know, the business of the county has to continue, pandemic or not. And the challenge that we've undertaken and how important we believe it is, though, to keep the meetings of the commission and the county as accessible to the public as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has been a challenge because, as you know, in your role, we didn't have the technology and still waiting on some of that technology to be able to do that seamlessly and in a manner that allows participation in a remote setting. And so we have been faced with the challenge of how do we do that from our planning commission meetings to our board meetings to our regular meetings where we're talking about agenda and agenda prep and agenda work session. It has been a challenge. We have done the best we can with the equipment that we have, but for the most part, no one envisioned being able to do WebEx or web event type meetings where you allow people to participate remotely from wherever and then have your board of commissioners here or even have them remote in. And so it's a little bit more complicated than the public probably actually understands in terms of making sure that they can participate and everybody can be heard, background noises, sharing screens and all of that. It has been a challenge, and we thank them for the patience, and we're hoping that we can continue to be able to provide them that level of participation, but do it in a manner that is quality work.
And as you mentioned, some of that equipment is still coming in. So, and it appears like this is not going to go away anytime soon. So hopefully moving forward, that will become a more seamless process.
Right. But there are some meetings where, by law, the commissioners have to be here in person. And it makes it difficult for those who want to participate remotely. Again, trying to do both, a virtual and an in-person, is where our challenge has been. But we are going into the budget. We're looking at, adopting the millage rate and approving the budget at the same time, and the commissioners have to be in person for those meetings.
Right, and those public hearings.
And the public
that
hearings,
accompany them as well. In the middle of a pandemic and dealing with all the issues we just touched upon, then there's been a little upheaval in society when it comes to Black Lives Matter issues, police departments, defunding of police departments, retraining police, and that issue's been alive in Cobb County. But how do you think the county's responded to it and has attempted to create a dialogue about these various issues?
I think the county has just stepped up and welcomed the dialogue. I applaud our police department, our entire agency of law enforcement. I applaud them for that. They never stepped down, backed away from it. They embraced it and said, let's have those conversations. We welcome the protests. We want them to be peaceful. Here are some suggestions. I recall one held at our public safety headquarters and our police headquarters, and we cleared out the parking lot and invited protesters who were driving in to park there. We wanted to make them feel welcome. We made it very clear, however, that we would not tolerate detractors and disruptors and all of that, but we are here to listen, and we want to show you that we care about you and what you have to say, but we want to do it in a respectful manner. So I applaud the way in which we've handled them. I know a lot of our police officers as well as all commissioners have been participating in roundtable discussions around race. That's great. Anytime we can have productive conversations around issues where people come together to learn, to listen, to lift each other up, we become better leaders as a result of that. So are we perfect? Absolutely not. But are we willing as a county and a community to sit down and talk about our differences and accept that at the end of the day, for the most part, we all want the same things. And that's part of our mantra around here, and that is, you know, we live here, we work here, we play here, we learn here, and at the end of the day, we're one Cobb County.
And I know you've got other things to do this morning, so I want to kind of just wrap up with a look forward. And we've received a lot of questions here at the communications department, I'm sure up in your office as well, as to how is it going to look in the future when it comes to the county and the budget and the things we provide. The economy's uncertain, things going on in society are uncertain. How do we approach an uncertain future?
Right. I think with optimism and hope and collaboration. Certainly, we do not have a crystal ball, and none of us could have predicted COVID-19 and all that has transpired. But at the end of the day, we have a Board of Commissioners that's committed to doing what is right. We are going to do the best we can to continue to protect our employees. We are very fortunate that our revenues came in prior to COVID-19, and so we have a very good digest this year. We don't know what the future holds, but as a result of the board's decision to raise the millage rate a couple of years ago, we are in a good place right now. We are going to present the board with an update in January as to where our revenues are, and then we can kind of go from there. We have had some, of course, significant challenges with our hotel, motel, travel and tourism, those things that would certainly impact our revenue collection. But at the end of the day, we feel pretty good where we are right now, ending FY20. We also have had our revenues coming in pretty much close to what they were pre-COVID for SPLOST, so we're thankful for that. But we don't know. We are going to continue to be fiscally prudent and conservative with the way in which we do things. We put things in place like a hiring freeze. We are only filling positions that were vacated and that were absolutely necessary to be filled. We're just taking each day as it comes in terms of making sure that we're doing whatever we can to try not to furlough employees, to lay anyone off, to have major budget cuts, but we are watching it very carefully as we move forward into FY 2021.
And as you mentioned already, next week is our budget and millage rate public hearings. They begin, and we're going to go into fiscal year 2021 with no millage rate increase plan.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we're proud of that. We're very proud of that. But we are, again, going to be fiscally prudent with what we're doing and see where we go. We thank our employees for being patient with us and working with us and continuing to provide the level of service that our residents have come to expect. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
All right. Well, thank you for coming into our new socially distant Cobb TV studios here. Dr. Jackie McMorris is Cobb County's manager. We appreciate her coming in today to provide some insight about what's going on in the county. We hope to do more of these visits in the months ahead. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Ross.